Hello, my name is Rick Griffin. I'm a regional administrator with the Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education, and I work the southeast part of the state of Oklahoma. We are here today to share the history of the regional administrators in our agency, and we're honored to have three former regional administrators join us, gentlemen who have many years of experience in CareerTech and who each are now retired. To my right is Dean Reeder. Dean retired a couple of years ago. He's a former coordinator of the Regional Administrators Group and lives at Saddle Mountain, Oklahoma. Next to him is Haydon Battles. Haydon has been retired for about 8 years. Haydon lives at Hobart, and we appreciate both of you gentlemen being with us. And to my left is Zed DeVaughan. Zed retired about a year ago, and Zed was kind of one of my mentors. Zed lives here in Stillwater, and Zed, we appreciate you being with us today. What we would like to do kind of to start today is to have each one of our guests to share some background information as far as their career tech background is concerned. And so Zed, we'd like to start with you and let you share with us kind of how your career tech background started and when you were a regional administrator and so on.
Thank you, Rick. Actually, I started off teaching agricultural education or vocational agriculture at Cooperton, Oklahoma, which is close to where Haydon Battles lives. And then after that, I was only there actually 1 year, and then moved on to the military for a while, and then went to Cushing and taught chemistry. I was there 4 years, and then went to Oklahoma City and taught sciences and did some coaching in John Marshall School, high school. And then was assistant principal at Eisenhower Junior High School. I was quite a while ago, but then in October of '72, I took a leave of absence from the Oklahoma City schools, came to Stillwater, was on the payroll of OSU to finish up some graduate work, but I was doing an administrative internship with Dr. Arch Alexander, Dr. Francis Tuttle, and so I did that for about 14 months until I finished my graduate work, and then I was asked to come on staff as an employee of the staff and do personnel development, which I was actually doing anyway during the administrative internship. So during the time that I've been here, I've been participating in quite a few different jobs, such as assistant coordinator of various schools. Did the personnel development for years, did civil rights for years, and then for the last 7 or 8 years that I was at the department, I served as the regional administrator, which was a great job and it was enjoyable to me. I retired last July the 7th, so that's kind of where we are, Rick. Thank you.
Okay. Haydon, why don't you share with us a little bit about your career tech background?
I started out in about 1971 being appointed to the state board. I served on that board for 10 years while I was superintendent of schools at Godibo. And if you don't know where Godibo's at, well, that's 7 miles from Comalty, 18 miles from Lone Wolf, 20 miles from Cooncazazy, and then was appointed to regional administrator in 1981 and served in that position until I retired in 1993.
Dean, why don't you share with us about your background?
Rick, I got out of OSU in 1960 and started teaching ag out in western Oklahoma and taught ag out there until '72. Came into the department as a curriculum specialist in '72, and then from there a short stint as a district supervisor in our VOAG department. Fred Schultz hired me out at Indian Meridian. That was just a new area school being started at that time, and I was assistant superintendent out there until I believe in 1978 they advertised the job in southwest Oklahoma, the regional administrator's job out there, so I was fortunate enough to get that job and move to Saddle Mountain, which for those of you that don't know where that is, it's 12 miles from Mears. It is near 35 miles from Lawton. But anyway, we worked out of Saddle Mountain from '78, and I was an RA then until '98.
Dean, tell us whose idea it was for the concept of regional administrators, and what was the reasoning for that decision?
Well, Rick, I wasn't one of the original 4 or 5 RAs, but I've been told, and I believe it's true, that actually that came about because of Dr. Tuttle receiving a lot of phone calls from administrators across the state about concerns or whatever, and it was really through the school administrators suggesting to Dr. Tuttle that they'd like to have someone as a person, a contact person, and I think they started out maybe with 1 or 2, and then gradually added RAs until the complete state was blanketed. But really the request came by way of the administrators, I believe.
I was serving on the state board when that came through, and Dr. Tuttle expressed to us that those people needed someone to talk to on occasions, and didn't have anyone really from the State Department. And that was really how the idea got started. It came from the local school administrators.
Haydon, what kind of an impact, in your opinion, has the addition of regional administrators had on our CareerTech system?
Well, that kind of goes right along with what we've already been discussing, and that's helping the administration at the local schools. Like, for example, new programs. Really, local administrators needed help to knowing what to ask for in their local situations, and things that were passed on down from the federal government that they had to comply with. And we actually were like a service to those people. I can remember the Carl Perkins laws that came through, and the federal money that was available. They really didn't know how to ask for that money or those grants that were available to them, and we helped them do that. And because of that, a lot of new programs were established. The one that comes to my mind was the technology education program. When I first started this, we had shop classes. And then overnight, that changed from sawdust to technology. From 1 program to 50, and bingo, just like that. So
Zed, one of the things that I know that our counterparts with the State Department of Ed are the regional accreditation officers, and a lot of times we hear people talk about one of their main responsibilities is they do a lot of compliance kinds of things. How do you see the role of a regional administrator compared to the role of an RAO? Do you see the regional administrator's role as one of compliance also, or is it somewhat different than a compliance role?
Well, Rick, I don't see us as compliance at all. In fact, Haydon alluded to this about what we really do is provide technical assistance. In other words, we're really a service agency, and I think we all pride ourselves on that fact that we can go to the schools and provide assistance to them. We also, I think, represent the department as a voice of the department, and we carry messages to the schools, to the field, to the superintendents on different programs, on things that have happened at the department that they need updating on. School to work, for example, was a major thing several years ago, and we spent a lot of time helping and interpreting the school to work to the superintendents and principals and sometimes counselors, and working with those individuals. But as I said, technical assistance is where we're really all about. There are other things that happen up here or other activities, such as professional development activities for people out in the field, and I think that's our role there to help the schools, the superintendents understand what those are and how we can get their people involved. We also visit with the superintendents about the vocational programs, and then if there are problems or even good things that are happening there, we can come back. We come back and coordinate with the state program administrators and the program specialists. So we try to have that good working relationship with the state program administrators and specialists, as well as other divisions in the department. But I think that's about all right now.
Okay. Communication, a pretty key issue as far as working with like program administrators and program managers, and so that everybody kind of knows what everybody's doing. And
Definitely.
A good example of that would be Zed himself. We had a problem out in one of our schools as far as sex discrimination as far as Title IX was concerned. A lot of the folks out that direction didn't even know what Title IX was at the particular time, and he came out and gave them technical assistance and got them through the situation rather well, and they were very appreciative.
bet so. They didn't want the folks from Dallas coming, did they?
Along that line, Rick, I think that, that's one thing that since the beginning, we sort of were expected to wear the white hats. That was maybe not always popular within the department, because we would flag things, but beyond that, it was someone else's responsibility to, if there was a problem, not ours. But we were a liaison person and sort of a PR person to promote and sell vocational education, and that really, at different points in my stay as an RA, we were selling different things. When we first started, there was a lot of what we call the CVET programs and a lot of cooperative programs, and schools had monies to put in new programs. A lot of the state didn't have area schools, and so part of our job was to promote all these concepts that the department wanted, and really I've always viewed it just as a salesperson for our department here. It was really a neat job.
In the early 80s, it was pretty easy to sell a program simply because, if you'll remember back, that's when we had the oil boom and lots of money flowing around. So it was easier to start up a program, and then later it got a little more difficult.
Rick, I want to mention one other thing I forgot a while ago. I think another thing that we do as we visit schools is interpret policy and regulations that are developed here at the State Department of Career and Technology Education. I think that's very important.
I think each one of you would agree that superintendents, I think, appreciate seeing the regional administrator come by, because they know that we're there to try to help them and try to share with them new things maybe that's coming, and try to develop the kind of relationship that they feel comfortable calling us at home at night if they need to, or whatever the case might be. And Dean, tell us a little bit about as far as the role of an RA when you first started as opposed to what it was when you retired. Quite a bit of change occur there as far as what the role was, or was it pretty similar from start to finish?
I suppose the role, the broad definition, was still a lot the same, but our duties were somewhat different because of, like I said a while ago, when we were into different issues, it changed our role within the department. Haydon alluded to the fact that we had a lot of money in the 80s. It was, a time when we were promoting programs and knowing that they could get funded. Schools had money to put them in, and then as this thing evolved, when I stopped work, there was a big push. A lot of our time was spent on the school to work issues, which you were getting to the applied, academic courses, and a lot of things totally unrelated to what it was 20 years before. Right. But still, it goes back to that's what our department, what we were really about and selling within the department. And so the broad definition might not change too much, but our role within the department changed a lot.
Okay. Haydon, tell us a little bit about how, in your opinion, high school and tech center programs have changed, and you alluded a little bit to it earlier, but how have those programs changed over the years, and what was your role or the regional administrator's role in seeing that those changes occurred?
Well, when I first started this job, most of the schools had two programs, an ag program and a home ec program. And that's about all that was available at that particular time for those schools. But of course, as I've already mentioned, things started to change a little. And that was the advancement of the area schools, that the feeder schools, of course, could send their students to a technology program of their choice. New programs coming from the State Department, such as the tech ed program that was so popular there in the early 80s and still, of course, is in existence today. So there was access to many more programs. The problem seemed to be finding enough time for the student to participate in all that he wanted to participate in, which was a logistic problem, I suppose, for the student. But quite a bit of change. I retired before the school to work cranked up. So I'm not familiar too much with that, but I know that's had a large impact in a lot of areas. But then a lot of grants were made through Carl Perkins that established new programs at local schools.
Mm-hmm. Are there some challenges that you guys see or some opportunities that you might see for our CareerTech system as we look on into the future? I know we hear a lot of discussion about college entrance requirements for young people and those kinds of issues. What are some possible challenges that you guys see out there, and maybe also some opportunities that you might see for the CareerTech system?
I think one big challenge, and just as a citizen that reads the paper some, is this continuance of the raising the bar on the academic coursework. You know, there's just so many hours in the day, and that's got to have effect on elective courses, of which ours are. So I think that it's something that we sure have to address from the standpoint of our enrollments, as far as high school enrollments. Because like it or not, most parents envision their children as all going to go to college. And we may know that that doesn't happen, but when you go in to enroll as a ninth grader or whenever, they're probably going to want to make sure that they're prepared fully to go to college. And I think that maybe this whole thing's got to run its cycle, and I hope that everything works out okay for us from the time until we get it all leveled back out. Some of these days we're going to realize that you know, you can take technical courses and go to college both.
Right.
Rick, I was just thinking about the guidance. I know the State Department of CareerTech plays a big role in the guidance and the counseling in the schools, comprehensive schools. And so there has been a lot of leadership here. I just want to say that I think we're going to need to continue to provide that leadership, and maybe even more, to make sure that the counselors out in the schools are aware of and have an appreciation for the career and technology education, because we're still having, I think, some problems there with career and technology education not being considered as one of the premier courses, when in fact it takes a lot of technology and it's a lot of intelligence to pass some of the courses.
Well, I know one of the concerns I think all of us have had for years is the number of and the quality of kids that end up getting sent to the tech centers. And my son, a couple of years ago, attended Mid-America Technology Center at Wayne in the HVAC program, and I know one day I was quizzing him about why. I saw him one day getting on the bus, and they had stopped to get some refreshments, and he was sitting in the front of the bus and all the other kids were sitting in the back of the bus, and I got to quizzing him about why he wasn't sitting up there with his friends, and he said, "Dad, have you seen who rides that bus?" And I said, "Well, no, I really had never paid any attention." But I think we all need to try to do a better job. I think that's a challenge that we all have in trying to see that if we can convince our schools that it's just not the lower quartile of kids that maybe need to be going to the technology centers. Maybe our valedictorians and salutatorians ought to be there also. So
I think that's a good point, Rick, and I guess that was one thing I hoped to see before I retired, and I did not. And certainly different communities view it different, but some communities do envision certain groups of kids getting on the VOTEC bus, whereas we've got other communities that do see more of a cross-section, and I don't know how that comes about, but I think it's something you got to sell to your feeder schools as well as your parents.
right.
And it's a real challenge for area schools, and sometimes I wonder about all the name changes. You know, we've made a lot of name changes thinking that's going to correct all this, and I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see if the changing names really makes any impact on how many kids get involved in what we call vocational education. I don't know.
It seems like the trend has been from secondary students to adult students for a number of years, or at least that was my observation. Quite a large number of adults are attending our area schools, and actually I've heard some of the administration say, well, we'll get them sooner or later.
Zed, having been an RA and just recently retired, how do you see the role of regional administrators in the future?
Well, I don't see it maybe too much different than what it is now, except for the fact that anything that new comes along, we need to be able to pass that on to the schools. So as Dean indicated earlier too, you know, we're PR people with the schools, but we need to take them the technical information that they need to be able to initiate new programs or to even close out programs when that becomes necessary. But I think Dr. Tuttle was a visionary person. I mean, creation of the regional administrator program probably was one of the better things, the best things that he's done, along with many, many others. But I see the regional administrator concept staying intact and maybe even with a greater role. But it has increased in its role over the years. But anyway, I salute the regional administrator concept, and I think it has a great future.
I think the basic principle that started this program is still there. I think those local administrators still look forward to seeing someone come to their site that's intended for service or being helpful.
I think that Haydon just hit on it, this word service. I think we started out as being service-oriented, and that was the big difference maybe in some other groups that had similar kind of jobs. And while our job had some compliance to it, because we worked with federal programs and helped with federal mandates, for the most part, we tried to approach it from the standpoint of we're here to help, you know, here to serve. And we used to jokingly tell our administrators that, you know, we're from the government here to help you, and that usually, but really I've always viewed it as that. The only reason that my job existed was because they were there and I could help them, and you know, and I really felt that way.
One of the things too I know that Zed alluded to earlier was, I know when School to Work first hit about 6 years ago, I know the regional administrators were kind of the lead people at that point in going out and forming partnerships, and played a vital role in the implementation of the School to Work initiative. Dean, I'm going to direct this question at you because I know one of the things that I've observed the years that I've been a regional administrator is we're a pretty close group of people. And maybe part of that's because we have occasionally during the year we have what we call quarterly meetings where we get together and spend a couple of days together, not only meeting but going on tours and things. And when we're all come into Stillwater for division heads or state staff meetings, we usually pile into Holiday Inn or somewhere and spend quite a bit of time in the room together telling stories or playing cards or whatever the case might be. Can you share with us a humorous story maybe that you can think of that back through your tenure that maybe happened to you while you were a regional administrator?
Rick, I could probably share quite a few. I'm not for sure we want them on tape. There is one story that happened to me the last year or two I worked that has been told and retold. In fact, if you know Jim Yoakum, you've probably already heard the story. But it is a true story. We were over at Western Hills to a meeting, and we were staying out in the cabins. And I had gone to the cabin earlier and had already gone to bed with the TV on. And as almost a nightly ritual, you go to sleep with the TV going, you know. But anyway, Jim had the room next door, and if you know Jim Yoakum, he snores bad. Mm-hmm. Well, about 2 o'clock or a little after 2:30 maybe, I hear this noise. I mean, it's loud enough that I guess it wakes me up. But we had a breakfast that morning at 7. But I look at my watch, and if you look at your watch at 2:15, and if you don't have your bifocals on, that suddenly gets to be around 6:45 or something. You know, you're looking at a 6:30 time. Anyway, I jump up thinking that I'm about to miss the breakfast, and I get in the shower, and I shower and shave and get ready to go. And again, I'm going to take care of Jim because he's my next door neighbor and my RA friend. And I call him and say, "Are you ready?" And he says, "Ready." And I said, "Yeah, to go to breakfast." Well, at somewhere about that time, he begins to laugh because it comes out that, you know, at 2:30 I'm fully dressed, and he never let me live that down, and still tells everyone that comes along about. But that is a true story, and that was about the time that I realized it was probably time for me to retire.
Well, I would certainly like to take this opportunity to thank our distinguished guests, Zed DeVaughan, Haydon Battles, and Dean Reeder for being with us today, and to allow us to take a look back at CareerTech and look back at the role that regional administrators have played throughout our history, and also an opportunity to look into the future. And so, Zed, Haydon, and Dean, we certainly appreciate each of you coming and sharing your time and being with us today, and we've enjoyed having this conversation. Thank you.